Enormous welcome to episode 3. I'm so happy that you have chosen to spend your free time listening to my podcast. God knows I love making it for you. We've survived quarantine, social isolation, social distancing, and we're on the other side of it, you guys. There is most likely going to be a second wave, but the fact that things are being lifted, rules are being turned down, we are a lot freer to learn what our new normal means now in this new world that we've been kept away from for how many 6+ weeks now. So here is a big congratulations to everybody here listening. Congrats on getting through the shit, because this was a challenging time for a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people had to have a moment to be with themselves and be like, wow, I can't sit still. I actually can't be alone with myself. Holy shit. I don't know what the hell I would do if I had to do this every single day. So to those people that found this particularly challenging, enormous kudos, congratulations, and I hope that you managed to take some kind of lesson from this time off that was so unexpected, but perhaps necessary for some of us. Diving right into today's episode, we have the pleasure of having a co-host today, one of my girlfriends, Sarah. She and I have met on Twitch. We've become fast friends on Twitter, and we run in the same circle. So, of course, I had to ask her to co-host because in our exchanges, she's proven to be a very well-grounded, very objective, and very real and honest person. You can catch the authenticity of who she is through her streams as well as on her tweets. A very entertaining person and just an amazing girl to shoot the shit with. So naturally, she's on my podcast with me today, and I hope you guys enjoy today's episode. Sarah, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Mecca?
I'm good, baby girl. Thank you so much for spending the time in your afternoon to hang out today on this very special episode of Ask Mecca.
Of course. Thanks for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
So you've read the letter.
I have read the letter, yes.
Yes. And a lot of thoughts, right? We have a lot of thoughts between the two of us.
We do, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to have thoughts on. There's a lot going on in this letter, and it's wild. I'm excited to talk about it.
I know. Okay, so I was thinking we just go through paragraph by paragraph. So if you have it in front of you, and we can just kind of be on the same page with this.
Yeah, I have it right here.
Dear Mecca, I'm a single dad working full-time, trying to create the best life for myself and my son. Now, before I get to the conflict I need help with, first I need to provide you some context. I've had a few relationships recently that have, well, ended poorly, to say the least. My last marriage, before this one, ended when she left me for a coworker. I caught her cheating on me with the kitchen manager at her job. I tried to forgive her and move on, but a few months later, I found her doing it again. I'd had enough, and I asked her to leave. And for about 3 to 4 months, it was just my son and I. One day, we went to the playground where I saw a gorgeous woman walking outside the neighborhood playground. And you can guess what happened next. We started hanging out, dating, and when she was having financial trouble, she moved in. A few months after that, we bought a house together. But I had the foresight to put it in my name. We tied the knot a little over a year later, despite fighting and bickering all the time over dumb stuff. Over this time, I learned she was very self-righteous and manipulative. Our arguments got so bad that eventually I started using the analogy, you could shoot me in the chest and wait for me to apologize to you. All right, analyze this part. You mentioned that you were married. Can you share with our listeners how old you were when you got married and why you felt that was the right decision for you?
Sure. So I've actually not been married for that long. I got married in September of 2019, this past year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I was 27 years old at the time. It was 2 months before my 28th birthday. So basically 28 years old. So basically I found the right partner. It wasn't like, oh, I'm this old or I'm this or that. You know, I had a really great partner to marry, thankfully. And also we were in a really good place in our lives. We were financially secure. We both had really good jobs, you know, the whole 9 yards. If I was having any kind of financial trouble, I probably would not have moved in with him or vice versa. But I have had partners in the past that did that to me. My ex before my husband did that, and my parents saw right through what he was doing.
They could tell right away, hey?
They knew, yeah. They're like, honey, this guy has no job. You're working full time, going to school full time, and you're going home doing this guy's laundry, cooking him dinner, you know, all of that stuff. So I relate to what this guy's going through. Thankfully, I was not a mother or anything at the time. But yeah, so I understand both sides of this, right? So
Yeah.
like I've had the good and the bad in this situation. Reason why my husband and I have the healthy relationship that we do and we always did starting out is because after I got in that really bad relationship with that last guy, I took like a year and a half just to myself.
It's like you had to do a reset.
Yeah, like I dated guys, you know, but it wasn't like I wanted to get into anything serious. You know, I evaluated, you know, what do I want in my future partner? If I were to marry someone, what would be the deal breakers and what would be, you know, like the absolute requirements?
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't going to settle for anything less than that. And that's what I did. And I've never regretted that once.
I mentioned in a previous episode that I'd gone through a bit of, I call it the defining relationship, where like maybe you've dated here and there and you haven't really had anyone that's kind of triggered that intense like realization of who you want to be in the world. And like, and I said that like that was the most painful thing I'd gone through, but it was the most important thing when it came to relationships, because I saw how I didn't want to be treated and I saw how capable of love I was. So it was like a good and a bad thing, you know?
Yep. But it sucks when that doesn't happen at a time where you're like able to actually like he's thinking about his son. He wants to find a good role model for his son.
Absolutely.
Someone that's going to treat his son right. But he's not thinking about what he wants. You know, he's thinking about two people now.
Yeah.
So that's what, yeah. So I feel for him, but you know, it's hard for me to speak from that standpoint because I'm not a parent, but I can imagine that, yeah, those kinds of relationships are very crucial to have.
Yeah.
But this poor guy, it seems like he has already had his fair share of painful relationships.
Right.
Yeah. And it sounds like this guy's kind of an empath. And people who are empathic attract these kinds of people and these kinds of, well, we haven't gotten through the whole letter. So
no, right? It's so interesting.
Anything.
Well, that's a great segue into the rest of it then, hey?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
It got worse and worse, leading her to become spiteful towards my son. Eventually, I told her I wanted a divorce. I had had enough, and my son deserved better. After this, she started acting out, making violent scenes everywhere we went. I kept quiet to keep it from my son until Super Bowl Sunday of this past year. That night, she went to take a shower. But eventually, that one shower began cutting into my son's bath time before bed. And if you have kids, you know how important a routine is for them. What constituted a normal shower extended well into an hour and a half. Exhausted, tired, and at the end of my rope, I hear a knock at my front door. I was greeted by flashing lights of blue and red. she had called the cops because she was scared. I was confused and tried to explain my side of the story just as I noticed my then wife and her daughter were leaving out the back door. About an hour later, the cops came back to arrest me. Believe it or not, it doesn't end there. So after getting arrested, I was forced out of my house for 3 months while she turned it into a brothel, drug pen, and broke and stole all of my items. Trying to get some kind of an even playing field, I reported it, only to be met with a denial because, quote, I had insufficient evidence. At this point, I'm broken, exhausted, and just so emotionally drained. I was venting and broken, and eventually I confided in my childhood best friend. He was someone I grew up with, and at one point even shared my family with him when he dated my sister. After I told him, he was shocked and baffled at what happened. We move on, things find some sense of normalcy, and fast forward 1 year later. I notice his Facebook relationship status changes from single to dating my ex-wife. Yeah, the one that got me arrested. So my conflict is this. I've already blocked him and I'm obviously not going to act on it, but I'm battling with myself on if I need to call him to warn him on what she will do to him, or do I just let him ruin his own life by himself? Signed, betrayed, and broken. So that was the rest of the letter. So I want to hear your thoughts on that.
So here's the thing. He already warned this guy about her, right? This guy already had his warning. So it's great that you block the guy, block her while you're at it, move on, get out of this battle you're having with yourself. Focus on yourself. Mm-hmm. You know, what we talked about in the first part of the letter, you know, it sounds like you just like, and you know what, that I went through the same kind of battles when I found out that this guy basically left me for a girl that was much younger than me and whatever. And I wanted to be like, oh, this poor girl, you know, she's gonna have it coming to her, but like he ended up doing the same thing to her that he did to me. But it wasn't really my place because she knew that he was in a relationship when they started talking and, you know, hanging out. I'm 98% sure that they were cheating, you know, he was cheating on me. Mm-hmm. So when he did it to her, I don't know why she would have been surprised. I doubt she was. I would hope not, because otherwise, like, come on, girl. But you know what I mean? So that's the first thing I want to say about that. But going back to this woman, I mean, the story is absolutely crazy. And what I'm more worried about is there's also a daughter in this equation.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, wait, there's 2 children involved in this? Like,
and like all I can think about, like, you know, as a female, I have like, you know, maybe I have like motherly instincts or whatever. I don't know if this is just coming from that kind of place. But like, I've been a camp counselor and a teacher and things like that. And I always just think of the kind of impression that's going to leave.
They're so easily influenced, especially between like, I don't know how old the daughter is, but if it's between the ages of 5 and 12, good luck, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's scary. And that's the thing. And people, this day and age, they it's one thing to, you know, get married on a whim, but it's another thing to have a child with someone. Yeah. And people don't really think about the long term. A lot of people will either get married to fix a problem. So like maybe they got married to fix some kind of financial troubles, despite the fact that they were arguing all the time and getting in fights.
Well, and I think that's a really interesting segue, though. I think in my life, I've had my fair share of friends that actually, like, I'm going to use a clinical term here, but like, I don't know the better way to say it. Like, there's certain people that get aroused by arguing with their partner, and it's like a sexual turn on. Like, that's a thing. So they'll keep fighting with their partner because that energy gets them turned on. But that's so, if that is the case, having that self-awareness to know, oh cool, so I'm picking fights with my partner because I want to have sex, that's really important to know the difference between I'm lonely and I need intimacy versus I want to start a fight, because the kids absorb that. They see how to treat other people that way.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's so true, because I have friends that are like that, and it's, I don't know, it's messed up.
It's so awkward to watch.
Yeah. But what's funny is like I've been on the other end of that where like every guy that I dated before that really bad guy that I was talking about earlier, all those other guys were so nice and they never did anything wrong or never treated me bad. And same thing with my husband. And then I'd always be like, God, like just once, what would it be like to like get mad at you about something totally valid? You know what I mean? And like that would be like a kink, you know what I mean? Or not like a kink, but it would be like a fantasy of mine. Like one day I just want him to call me a bitch and see what, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like what, just like stop being nice for a day. Like,
Oh my God.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get the opposite. It's I get it.
It's funny because I look back and I look back at past partners, and the one that like really like changed everything for me was the one that like it was that defining one I mentioned, and he treated me like shit. And the ones before then were like the good guys, the nice guys, and the guys that were out of the friend zone, but they were safe options for me. And
Right.
I ended up leaving my other my partner before that guy. I left him for that guy, and it's this partner that just changed everything for me as an asshole. But it showed me that like I think the most important part was it showed me how not to treat people, because I just hadn't gone through what it felt like to to be left for someone else and to go through that deep rejection, which is so important. Segue into the letter real quick. So when in the letter, when she was hiding in the bathroom because she was, quote, scared, that says to me there's some severe PTSD from a previous incident that hasn't been addressed, because that's not logical to do that. But I've actually done that because I was triggered, and I had a disassociation episode where I thought I was somewhere else.
Right. Definitely.
So, and that's a possibility where by all intents and purposes, she could have been scared.
Right.
But
yeah, fear is subjective always.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
The situation just didn't warrant that reaction from what I can read.
Yes. And I mean, remember that this letter is only coming from one side of the story. So if she submitted if we had both of these people write in, she might have said he was screaming and yelling and banging on the door, telling me to get out of the bathroom. And I felt scared. Like some people, that would, like you said, it would trigger someone.
Yeah, so that would, like, yelling triggers me, absolutely. And so what's interesting is, like, I think our society in general in 2020, like, we're quite muted compared to perhaps who we were in the 90s and 80s. And I feel like you never see people yelling at each other anymore. No. And like, you know, and
you're just doing it in text now.
And you subtweet.
Yep. That too. Yep.
That too. Yep. What shocks me is, and this is my total anecdotal experience of seeing a one-dimensional person through getting to know them, but about an hour later, the cops came back and arrested me. I was forced out of my house for 3 months. So this guy's gone to jail. Like, that fucks me up a little bit.
And then they say that he tried to press charges on her, but there wasn't enough evidence, yet somehow this girl had some kind of evidence to get him out of a house that his name is on, and not her, for 3 months. I mean, they're married.
It's not even like, because this is baffling, it sounds like, to both of us, but how do you think that happened? Because when I was growing up, and I'm a child of divorce, but when I was growing up, the judge would side with the mother typically, which is totally not the right thing to do in certain situations.
I know.
So, like, do you think that this is depending on perhaps the state that he lives in, or do you think
that's what I'm thinking? Honestly, I was gonna say, from what I'm reading, I think that he lives in one of those counties where domestic cases usually are just gonna go right to the woman. That's it. Yeah. And it's so unfortunate because the stigma of like men don't get abused or harassed or anything like that, it's sickening.
It's awful, right?
Because it couldn't be further from the truth.
Well, and it's interesting because I know a lot of men now. I think now that toxic masculinity is a conversation that we're all having, I know a lot of men that have been the term "mommy's boy" doesn't apply here. I just don't know a better way to say it. Where like the dad was either really absent, and the mother was super doting, or the mother was toxically doting, like that Netflix horror series. I can't remember, Psycho, basically, but it's the TV series. Right. And I think that's what happens here is like there's so many patterns in this letter of this human being not respecting themselves, and like you know what I mean? So it's like there's signs that point to this potentially exploding. And what I can see is this person's been conditioned to see that these things weren't red flags to even pay attention to.
Right. And what's unfortunate too is these cycles just continue when there's kids involved. So like these kids, you know what I mean? Like this is what, like we going back to what you're saying, this is them learning how to treat people, especially romantic partners. Because there's people who, you know, they're the best friend anyone could ever have, and they're so kind and this and that. But when it comes to their romantic partners, they're an absolute monster. They can be two completely different kinds of people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and that's what's really interesting is like there's a lot of people that I feel like are so afraid of intimacy, so they can have, as you said, a ton of friends, be very social, but when it comes to having that connection and attachment, there's like that attachment trauma that means that they can't actually emotionally, romantically attach to somebody because of some shit that they don't even remember happened.
What I want to know next is, what did he want to get out of writing this letter to us? Is he asking us, does he want to call this guy out? Is he asking us, how does he move on from this?
Well, yeah, and that's what we were discussing yesterday, where we were like, we actually couldn't grasp the intention of this, because it's what I hear is there's a battle of, almost a battle of the heart in the last section, where he doesn't know if he should first. He's saying, I'm obviously not going to act on it, which is like a double entendre, saying like, I've thought about it and I'm consciously not going to do anything. And then he says, but I'm battling with myself on if I need to call him out and warn him on what she will do to him, or, in caps, let him ruin his own life by himself. So he's also phrasing it like his life has been ruined, and it hasn't been, but he's saying that it has.
Right. And the other thing is, I know when you're holding on to this kind of like pain and anger with someone, it means that there was obviously some lack of closure in this relationship when it ended. Because he just got kicked out of his house for 3 months. He never got to tell her, yo, like they never got to have any kind of conversation.
How would a human being get closure from this situation though? Like I can't. I've been the abandoner. I leave everybody, and now I'm in a healthier place before I wasn't, and I just can't imagine how you would have sufficient emotional closure for the situation, because it's so emotionally aggressive.
Right. No, the only thing you can do is find it within yourself, because you're not going to get it from anyone else.
Like, would you say like maybe writing a letter and burning it? Would that, you think, maybe help this person?
I mean, for some people that might help. I've done a similar thing where like I wrote okay, this is actually really funny. I wrote like a children's book as if it were like, but I didn't like send it to anyone. But I basically was like, okay, if I wanted to make sure that I like never got myself into this kind of a relationship again, or, you know, God forbid I ever had a daughter that like started dating a guy like this, how would I have seen these signs earlier on? And I kind of just like looked at it from a different perspective, and having I mean, maybe it's since he has a son, like if he tries to look at it from like, you know, these are the qualities that this person had that I need to stay away from when I'm looking for my next partner. Because not only did it negatively affect my life, I mean, his son didn't have a dad for 3 months.
Right.
So what I would be more concerned about is like, how can I make sure that this woman is as far away from my life as possible? I don't want to I wouldn't be worried about what she's doing now. You know what I mean? I would just want to be as far away from her and, you know, keep, you know, because what if this guy does get called out? You know, what if he decides to call this guy out, and then that guy goes to her and says something about it? Then the guy who wrote this letter, his name's going to be back in that girl's mouth again, and God knows what she's going to be capable of.
And if she's a narcissist, they just feed off that energy like crazy.
Oh, they absolutely do. And next thing you know, she's going to try to put on some kind of like restraining order. And like we've seen, like we were saying before, I don't think that anyone's going to disagree with her if she tries to file anything else, especially with all of the strikes on his record and their history.
Yeah.
So I think he's messing with fire if he tries to get himself involved.
So you just think the best decision for him is to just cut the cord and live a life that is far away from her, and that behavior is possible.
Yeah, not only for his sake, but his son's sake, most importantly.
But I mean, but I know what you mean. Where like like I don't know about myself and children. I've been up and down for years, but it's I know for a fact from my own journey with myself that I understand how important, incredible, like pivotal years are to forming those healthy adult relationships. And like, the 3 months was a really valid point that you said, because we don't know if he went with family, we don't know if he went to foster care, and depending how old he is, that's something that this person can never give back to their child, because this toxic person, they basically took that time away from him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And why would you want to risk that again?
Yeah. In his motivation, what I see is like, this is him yearning for that closure, exactly what you said, because he has that connection to her, to have control in a situation he felt absolutely powerless in.
That's how we all feel, honestly, in those kinds of situations where it's like, wait, I never got to have my say in this. Like when that guy dumped me, that awful ex of mine, first time I was ever dumped, by the way.
It's the worst. But it's the worst, I know.
No, but he texted me. He texted me while he was at a party with her, at a frat party. And this was a month after I uprooted my entire life and moved from Pennsylvania to South Carolina to be with this guy. Well, we moved there together, and to start a new life, whatever. But little did he know that, this new life did not include me. It was kind of just like, okay, I got all the furniture. I have, everything I need. Now I just got to get rid of her. So he kept all my stuff. He kept all my furniture. And then, yeah, it was just a mess. So
if you can walk me through why, if it's okay, if we could go in that situation where he made it clear that he wanted the furniture and he wanted to have that battle with you, and why did you let him have it?
Well, so my parents were really big. I was relying on them heavily for guidance during this whole thing, because I think I was about 23 years old, 24 when I ended this relationship.
Tough age.
Yeah, which is a really rough age, and it's like, I'm barely an adult yet. So, I wanted that furniture because it was my dad's furniture, and my dad was kind enough to let me take it. The argument was, so this guy was living rent-free for over 2 years with me, basically. Then we moved to South Carolina together. We moved all of my furniture down. His parents were kind enough to pay for the moving service. It was about an $800 check.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's almost $1,000.
Yeah, and that's from Pennsylvania to South Carolina, so that's a long, long drive.
Yeah.
And, but we were paying rent for this guy for several months, which obviously adds up tenfold compared to $800 of moving expenses. So basically, my dad and my mom were just like, listen, the more you guys have to, the more assets you guys have to divide, the more you have to keep talking to this guy, and the more you have to keep communicating with him, and the longer it's going to take for you to just move on from all of this. And so I lived in an apartment with literally a mattress, a dresser, and I had like a sink and a fridge, but I had a mattress, a dresser, and a nightstand.
Heroin hideaway.
Yeah, literally that's what it felt like. And when I would have guys over from Tinder or whatever to my apartment, they'd walk in and be like, I'm like, what? And I would just lie and say that I was practicing a minimalistic lifestyle, but really I was just going through the worst breakup ever.
I just what's funny is my sister is going through something similar, and she just left a very long-term relationship, and it was my last major breakup was when I was 25, so I'm well past that now, and it took me a long time to kind of heal from my situation, but that's what those years are for. But she's my age, and she just went through something similar with a now ex-partner, and I just it was just I didn't have that memory of the pain, but it's almost like I ached because I know what a rough she's been with this guy for 5 years. So she's 4 months, she's my stepsister, but she's 4 months younger than me. So she hadn't had that opportunity. Her and I were both serial monogamists. And
okay. Yeah, that's exactly how I used to describe myself too.
Serial monogamist, right? Where you just don't have the break.
Term ever. Yeah.
And I think it's so important to get to know yourself. If you haven't had that opportunity to get to know yourself, you have no idea what the hell you want, and you have no idea what the hell you don't want. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Because, yeah, all of my previous relationships, my rebound time was, anywhere from like 3 to 6 months, which is not really substantial. And it would usually just be like, okay, I've been, hooking up with this guy for a while. I guess we'll just make it an
We'll just
exclusive
do
thing.
a date.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it would be like, I don't know. But that's part of being a serial monogamous. Yeah.
Was there a pivotal point in that year that if there was a conflict between who you were feeling, like if you missed being in a relationship, did you ever have a moment of desperation, or did you kind of fight through that moment of loneliness to be like, no, I need to be alone?
I'll admit I had Tinder.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I was never I never did one night stands. I never really slept with guys on the first date or anything like that.
Ugh.
I was just so desperate for like companionship sometimes because my apartment, I didn't have a TV. I had a laptop. And I didn't really have anything to do. I was living by myself. I had a dog, but it was really easy for me to get lonely. I didn't have video games. I didn't have anything. So, usually I was just I found myself reaching out to a lot of like either old hookups or like guys I used to know from my like years and years and years ago that always thought. So this is what was kind of a booster for me. It was I wasn't an ugly kid, but I was awkward. I had friends, but I wasn't popular. I wasn't someone that all the boys liked. I don't think that there was anyone that really had a crush on me in like grade school. Maybe some guys in high school.
That's how you're able to be so funny now. I find that the really funny girls were really ugly growing up, or they felt really ugly.
I was just always funny. Yeah, that's what I was. I was the class clown. But so then when I got on Tinder, I would start matching with some of these guys from my past, from my old days, or who knew me in middle school, high school, and they'd be like, damn, Sarah grew up. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not just that goofy, funny girl anymore now, am I? I'm that goofy, funny, hot piece of ass now. And it's like hilarious, but that's exactly how it was. So it kind of was like, I felt like I owed it to myself to be like, okay, that guy got rid of me, and I know I didn't deserve that. Like, I knew I did not deserve what happened to me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just kind of, it was nice to feel valued again, because part of what caused our falling out was I started taking a medication for, I think it was anxiety or something, and it caused me to gain a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And so I gained maybe like 10, 15 pounds, and it wasn't that I was fat. I didn't get fat. There was a little extra cushion, and for some reason he didn't like it. And one day he actually locked me out of the house and told me not to come home until I went for a jog. But I also had a full-time job and was working on my feet at a restaurant every day. It was just, there were so many red flags, and I was so, like, I don't even understand what was wrong with me. The guy was hot, so I guess that was the only thing.
But that's where it's so important to get of not knowing yourself, because your self-esteem was dictated by someone else's validation of you.
Right. Yeah. No, and I was putting up with too much just because, I loved them and I was going to grow old with them. And we had so many synchronicities that led me to believe that he was the one for me and we were soulmates and all this stuff. But after a while, I was like, you know what? It's time to just admit that this was not that. It was not any kind of fate. It was none of that. You were in a daze or whatever. And now it's over. It was a learning experience. And once I accepted that, it was a million times easier to move on. Mm-hmm. And it takes a while. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 3-4 months even. Mm-hmm. But you'll know when it happens. There's no guaranteed length of time.
It's so funny because it's not a Hollywood thing. It's not a love at first sight thing. It's just there's a moment where the universe and the energies in the world collide, and it's almost like it's exactly like a switch, and it's just that's it. And I don't talk very much about this, but my partner, he goes by Hero Tempest online. We met this is hilarious. So my sister I was working for National Geographic, as you and I've talked about before, and my sister was sending me Snapchats of her at a party, and I was like, who the fuck is that? Oh my God. And I looked at him, and he looked literally like Slash from Guns N' Roses, and I was sitting at my desk, living by myself, lonely as fuck in Toronto. And I'm like, I'm so bored. I'm just trying to, right? I'm just waiting for a phone call for work. And I have no life. I just go home, play with my cat, sleep, go to work. And I was exhausted. So I go home at Christmas time and there's a New Year's party happening at my brother's house. This is my actual brother. And so my sister was there and so was Josh. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I've never been like, I was starstruck. I've never met somebody that I was like, you fit all the T's, you check all the check marks. And we met each other and we just talked the entire night. And I was like, oh my God, this is Snapchat boy. I'm whatever. So my sister's boyfriend, I know, my sister's boyfriend, who Josh was friends with, he started getting sick because my sister-in-law was fucking pouring alcohol down everyone's throats. So he starts, yeah, right? And so he starts throwing up, and immediately Josh, who was flirting with me at the time, he turns around because he hears them puking, and he takes him immediately, gets his jacket on, his friend's shoes, and he's really maternal. And I was like, oh my gosh, hot and bothered, let's make babies right now. And then they call a cab. So my sister's gone, Josh is gone with a friend, but just as Josh was putting on his super smooth leather jacket and leaving, I was like, I'm really disappointed in you. And he's like, why? I'm like, you're just a huge disappointment. And he's just like kind of taken aback. And he was like, keep telling your sister how cute you think I am. And he shut the door. I was like, no one's ever said that to me.
Oh my God.
Right? And then, so I go home to Toronto, and then I just realized I was in Toronto, and the 3 hours we had talked on New Year's Eve and got to know each other was what, and he didn't ask for a number. That was why I was so mad. He didn't ask for anything. But the 3 hours that we hung out and got to know each other, I was like, you fit far more with me than anyone I've met over the past 6 years that I've been in Toronto. And luckily I was physically attracted to him, but intellectually I felt like I'd met my equal. And believe it or not, 2 months earlier I talked to a psychic I gave myself a birthday present of talking to a psychic. And
I need to do that. I love psychics.
Oh my God, I'll give you my girl. She's amazing.
Yeah, give me your girl. I need her.
And so she said, in a short amount of time, you're going to be moving and leaving the area you're in, and you're going to be meeting your partner, your long-term partner, but this only comes with a move. And when I met with the psychic, I had no thoughts of moving back home, and I was going to just be a working girl forever. And when I met Josh, it was like that switch. And it was like, no, I'm ready. I'm coming home. And then six weeks after we met, we dated, and we've been together for over 2 years now.
Wow, that's crazy. I feel like that's the kind of thing that should happen though when you find that person, because yeah. I had the similar thing. So RJ and I always knew each other, yeah, but it was like he always knew me as that really, really, really pretty girl that was friends with his one friend Slav, who eventually was like in our wedding party. So cute. And yeah, so like he was like we had this mutual friend, and I would always run into RJ at like concerts and like hangouts, whatever. And every conversation would just be like, oh, hi, how are you? Good to see you again. And like, what's up? And that was it. We never had a chance to get to talk. And it's so cute how he tells his side of this. So I'll tell it that way. Yeah. So we were supposed to go to a music festival together. And so this guy, his name's Slav, he asked me if I wanted to camp with him and all of his friends, because my friend and I were going to be going, but we had no one else to camp with. And music festivals are usually more fun when you're in a whole big group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so he extended the invite to me, and I was like, oh, thanks. So the plan was we were all going to meet up at this movie theater nearby the festival grounds so we could all caravan in together and get a spot, like get all our cars next to each other and all that good stuff. And so RJ always recalls pulling into the parking lot in his car, and then sees my car pulling in, sees me getting out, and he just goes, oh God, Sarah's here. Oh my God, Sarah's camping with us, and is like hyperventilating. Meanwhile, I didn't really know who RJ was. Like, I knew who he was, but I was actually kind of hoping that things with Slav and I were gonna, so awkward. So then we get ourselves set up in the campgrounds. My friend, who I had come to the festival with, started feeling really sick and had to have her partner at the time drive up and take her home. So now at this point, I'm by myself.
You're
I
by
barely have any
yourself.
friends there. Slav is now so Slav had recently broken up with his girlfriend, but she decides to surprise everyone and show up at the music festival for the weekend.
What a
So there goes my
C-word.
plan for that. Yeah. And so I'm just like, great, now what do I do? And it
is
wasn't
this
like I was
Friday
on
night
the
or
prowl.
Saturday?
This all happened the first day of the festival, like Friday, like Thursday night going into Friday. And so I'm like, this is gonna be a long weekend. Like I have no friends, so I'm just gonna have to make the most of it and just kind of get to know as many people as I can. There's a lot of Philly people here, which is where I'm from, so I'll take this opportunity to hang out with some of them. And one of those people was RJ, because I always knew him, like I said, and we always talked, but we never really had a chance to like get to know each other. So that's basically what we did. So he was there camping by himself. He had a tent all by himself. I was in a tent by myself now because my friend wasn't camping. So we kind of were just looking out for each other the whole weekend. And what really stuck out to me the most was he was just always checking in with me. If he saw me carrying something around, he'd be like, oh, do you want me to hold that for you? He'd always like carry my sweatshirt for me. Or if he was going to go get a beer, he'd ask me if I wanted anything. Just like he was a gentleman, and it was the first time I was actually with like dating, or not date, we weren't dating, but you know, it was the first time that I was flirting with a guy and being like, wow, this guy genuinely cares. And I never once did I think he was doing those things to like get in my pants or try to get a date with me. It was like, this guy.
What I was gonna say. What I'm hearing is there's no malicious predatory intent here.
And because he was doing that for everyone, he would do that for any of his friends. And I was like, this guy's just a genuinely great person. He has a lot of friends. They all really adore him. He clearly has a heart of gold, and that was the first thing that stood out to me. And so going back to that little laundry list that I made of, you know, the qualities I needed, it was like you said, it crossed all the T's, and it was a no-brainer. And I remember saying to myself, like, I better fucking marry this guy. Sorry for cursing. But I was like, I better freaking marry this guy. And what's so ironic was my ex, that really awful ex, the moment I realized that me and this guy were like destined to be together or whatever, I turned around. We were watching this set by a DJ called Trippy Turtle. I turned around, and standing behind me was my ex in the crowd. What the hell was he doing there? I don't know. But yeah, like I was just like, I kind of just hyperventilated, but I always thought that if I ever saw that guy, it would be like the most traumatic thing ever.
You would feel so vulnerable and small and
just
seen,
like break down and be like, oh my God, we have to leave.
Panic,
we have to go somewhere else.
Yep.
But instead, I was like, that loser, he's gonna see me here with this really nice guy and like whatever. And now going back to thinking about that, I wonder if he realizes, I don't think he even knows that he was watching me fall in love with that guy.
Oh.
And then now and then recently just congratulated me for marrying. That's just so freaking cool.
I love it. But every good love story has some really weird synchronicity that happens in that, and it's just like there's an energy that kind of keeps everyone flowing, and it's like I think that's a huge sign of that happening, where it's just there's three. I'm going to use the word souls, but 3 souls that are connected there. And it's almost like so when I saw my psychic, she's talked about past life, and I'm more of an agnostic than anything, but she was talking about how the reason my previous partner was with me was because I showed him beauty in life, and he had a really, really, really tumultuous upbringing. Naturally, my empathetic energy wanted to fix him. And
right? Sounds very familiar.
Right? But she said that in his past life, apparently, like he had to keep going back to the partner he left me for because there was a lot of unfinished business. And she's like, he still feels really bad about how he ended things with you. There's a lot of guilt associated with that. He knows it was the right decision, but he's with this other person and he's absolutely unhappy. And I'm like, I didn't wish that on that person, but I had that help me get closure when she was like, he knows that he handled it really poorly, and like he broke up with me on my birthday.
Wow. For me, the closure, my mom was like, hey, guess what? I found 3 mugshots of your ex when I was Googling his name the other day. Do you want to see them? I'm like, my mom holds on to breakups longer than I do, even if they're not hers. But she'll look him up. Like, you know how girls are where they'll like look them up. But she does that with him sometimes. Not anymore, I don't think. But it was like the same kind of thing where my mom's like, look at him. He's got it. And like, he literally had like a mustache and a mullet going on. And I'm like,
no.
oh yeah, I'm definitely doing better than he is. Thanks, Mom.
Oh my
Like, you know,
God.
you always need that little reassurance and that ego boost, which is so, I don't even know why I'm admitting this on air, but okay.
I'll edit it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Full transparency.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Okay, so last segue. I think we should touch again on what sounds like this person was once really important to him in his life, and it's almost like his friend is under a love spell, which we've all been under before. You're fucking on drugs, like you're done, you can't focus, right? So I have empathy for his friend who's blinded by the light, basically. But I think what he might be grieving as well is the loss of a friendship, and it's almost like, did you have expectations on this friend that he would never do this to you? Because that's almost on you, because I think on any relationship, you can't place expectations. I mean, a lot of us do it unconsciously. I myself am guilty, but it's like having the awareness that like, is this person really the person you thought they were? And is that what you're grieving? Is that they were never the person that you wish they could be?
Yeah, he took everything that this guy had already told him and still pursued this person in some way or another.
Yeah. Is he still a bad friend, or do you think that he's just someone that fell in love?
This guy might, honestly, it might be both, because you can fall in love with someone and still be a good friend and be like, hey man, your girl is coming after me. I wanted to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
You know, like something like that. I can understand why this guy feels betrayed. That's totally valid.
Oh yeah.
But unfortunately, he might just have to cut these both as losses, like cut them as losses. And I would not recommend reaching out to this guy, because like we've said, you've already warned him. You've already called him out. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
He was there for all of it.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, if this is a personality disorder that she has, which I'm not a doctor, but it sounds like it could be, right? These are problems that no one else can fix except her, and she has to realize what her bottom is, and that means possibly inflicting harm on people until she's 100% isolated, and then that might give her the opportunity to reassess how she's hurt others. With our friends, we want to make sure that they're our family. We want to protect them, but when we see them going down a dangerous path, I think that can really test the tensile strength of a friendship, because that's your perception of danger. But to them, they might not know how dangerous it is. And if they don't learn that the stove is hot, they're going to keep touching it, Yeah.
Have you heard the analogy of like a frog in boiling water, and how you can compare it to a bad toxic relationship, where if you put a frog in a pot of water on a stove and turn the burner on and it slowly gets hot, the frog's going to stay in there until it dies. Yeah. If you put a frog in boiling hot water and the frog jumps in there, it's going to jump right out because it knows it's hot. Yeah. It's the same thing as when we're in an abusive relationship. When you get into a relationship, it's always starts off rainbows and butterflies. It's always a honeymoon phase. If you have a guy that starts screaming, yelling at you, and throwing things at you on the first date, you're gonna ghost that guy. You're not calling him back. You're not letting him drive you home and finding out where you live. Mm-hmm. So it's the same kind of thing. It's after a while you're so blind to all of these red flags that are being thrown at you because you're so comfortable in this water that's getting warmer and warmer, unbeknownst to you, and it's not good. And this is what happens when it boils over the edge. And
I think the dangerous part with boiling over, it's like what's scary about that is, like, say that we were brought up in a pretty rough and tumble home, like verbal abuse was pretty apparent, and it's our sense of comfort is being around chaos. And I mentioned this in episode 2, as I was reading a story about someone that it appeared that they were really comfortable in chaos. And I think that can be quite a common thing, where like you leave the safe space of mommy and daddy to be a big kid adult, and you find the nearest relationship that looks familiar to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's right for you, because lo and behold, you find out through going through that journey that maybe the relationship you were around most prominently wasn't the healthiest.
And us being kids of divorce, we don't know. I sure as hell didn't have much to compare a good relationship to. My parents did nothing but argue. They never were like, they were never handsy with each other. They were not in love with each other. So
No.
I thought that love looked like bickering constantly, arguing about what chores still needed to be done, what bills still had to be paid, just kind of grinning and bearing everything, rolling with the punches. And I'll admit that will probably affect my marriage at some point. You know, we're still in our early newlywed phase. But recognizing these things in our parents' marriages and identifying them and what to be mindful of is equally important. Because just because we have never seen a good relationship doesn't mean we don't deserve one.
Oh,
obviously.
absolutely.
But it's harder for us to navigate through that, because good relationships are very rare these days, and it's. Oh God, I could go on a whole tangent about that.
It's amazing. It's what I think is super important is that I think doing a bit of a closure on his letter is like, I think all that I'll say to finish it off is that, you know, I've been there with the pull and the push of the tug of war in this friendship, in this relationship. And I've especially been in an eye for an eye situation where you just feel so violated and frustrated with this other person that you just want to inflict as much pain on them as they've inflicted on you. But if this is someone that's done this as a behavior pattern, you won't inflict any pain on them because that's all that they know. So it's comfortable to them. So where you're in pain and hurt, wanting to get back at them, they won't take it the way that you intend it, and that's them winning. It's just how those people work. So I think, as Sarah said, I think my advice is to just cut the cord, find a change of scenery if you can. And even if it's something as simple as taking a different drive home, if you drive past or near where she lives now or where you live together, change that drive, just something to change it up so that you can start to move on.
Definitely. Yeah. Because he's, like we said, you're an empath. And so you should be taking that same energy that you spend caring about other people and how you treat them and gear that on towards yourself. I know it's easier said than done, but I think you're more than capable of it. And I wish you the best. I really do. I think this guy is definitely deserving of a good person in their life. And I do say that sometimes that person does come along, and I don't go looking for them. They'll come to you.
Yeah. That's all that I can say as well. I promise you, they come when you least expect
when
it.
you're ready for them. You're ready for them. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. All right. Well, Sarah, do you have anything else that you want to add to this person?
No. Thank you for writing this in and trusting us to give our thoughts on it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, enormous thanks, and
huge. Very brave.
It's really brave, and it's really hard to be vulnerable. But that's why I always preface that it's anonymous, because my goal is to have people find something to relate to, but also within the freedom of not being identified if they don't want to be.
Yeah, that's great. I think I like this segment you're doing, so I'm excited to hear the recording afterwards and see more letters. But
I'm excited.
Maybe I'll submit a letter one day. You'll never know.
You'll never know, because it's anonymous.
You'll never know.
All right, babe. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sarah. And where can we catch you, and where's your socials if people want to hear more of you?
Oh, well, I tweet almost daily. Twitter, my Twitter and my Twitch are the same. That's SRivs, ESRIVS. That's a V as in Victor. And I'm on Instagram, but I'm just there to look at things. So if you want to find me on there, SRivs_TTV. And yeah.
Amazing. Well, we're going to have a puppy barking in this one because I think that was too good to edit out. All right. And as well, the SRivs socials will be available in the show notes as well. So if you can click that and find her on Twitch and Twitter and Instagram. So, all right, babe, I'm going to let you go. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mecca. Bye, everybody.
No worries, girl. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
That that was Ezra's, one of my fantastic, amazing girlfriends, very grounded human being. And I appreciate so much that she was able to lend some of her insight, share some of her story with us today, and spend the afternoon hanging out with me. If you guys want to submit a letter as well, the link is available in the show notes, and you can always contact me on Twitter, Twitch, or Instagram, and my socials are available in the show notes. Everybody have a fantastic rest of your week, and we will chat soon. Take care, guys.